They didn't react. They noticed. They didn't argue. They paused. They didn't trust what they felt immediately. They questioned it. And that's exactly why they feel different from everyone else. Not better, just aware. And the strange part is that awareness doesn't always feel like a gift. Sometimes it feels like a burden you can't turn off. By the end of this video, you're going to understand something most people never fully grasp. Why? People who are too aware often feel disconnected, overwhelmed, and misunderstood, even when they're seeing things more clearly than everyone else. And here's the warning. Once you understand this, you won't be able to go back to how you used to see people. There's always that one person, quiet but not shy, observant but not judgmental. They listen more than they speak. And when they do speak, it feels like they're not reacting, they're analyzing. You tell them something simple, and they respond with something deeper than expected. Not dramatic, just accurate, and sometimes uncomfortable, because they don't just hear words. They notice tone, energy, timing. They see what's said and what's not said. And if you're watching this, there's a chance that person is you. If this is already hitting close to home, type 1 in the comments. Now let's go deeper, because this isn't about being smart or intelligent. This is about how your mind processes reality. Daniel Kahneman explained that humans operate on two systems. System 1, fast, automatic, emotional. System 2, slow, analytical, conscious. Most people live in System 1. They react. They assume. They move quickly through life without questioning much. But highly aware people spend more time in System 2. They pause. They analyze. They observe. And this is where everything changes. Because when you live in that state, you don't just experience life, you examine it. And that creates distance. Behavior. People tell you you're overthinking. They brush off what you notice. Internal reaction. You start questioning yourself. Hidden damage. You suppress your perception even when it's accurate. Long-term consequence. You become quieter, more selective. But here's what most people miss. You're not wrong. You're just seeing more. A behavior. People use subtle guilt. They twist situations. B, internal reaction. You see it instantly. C, hidden damage. You feel drained because you can't unsee it. D, long-term consequence. You stop engaging. And this is where everything changes, because awareness removes illusion. A behavior, people push limits, they test your patience. B, internal reaction. You notice patterns, not moments. C, hidden damage. You feel tension building silently. D, long-term consequence. You create distance without explanation, because you don't need repeated proof. A behavior, you give depth, they give surface. B, internal reaction. You feel imbalance. C, hidden damage. You start withdrawing emotionally. D, long-term consequence. You stop investing where there's no return. And this is the part no one tells you. Aware people don't need more people. They need real connection. And this is where everything shifts. They don't leave suddenly. They leave after they already left emotionally. The moment they realize they're the only one truly aware in a connection built on autopilot, behavior. People say one thing, mean another. Internal reaction. You feel the inconsistency immediately. Hidden damage, you lose trust quietly. Long-term consequence, you stop taking words seriously. You watch actions instead. Behavior, you're overthinking. You're too sensitive. Internal reaction, you analyze deeper. Hidden damage, you feel isolated. Long-term consequence, you trust yourself more than others. And that's where independence begins. Behavior, constant overstimulation, too much awareness. Internal reaction, you feel mentally tired, not physically. Hidden damage, you overanalyze everything. Long-term consequence, you seek silence, because silence is the only place where your mind can rest. Now here's what most people don't understand. Awareness is not just observation. It's cognitive load. Your brain is processing more data, more patterns, more inconsistencies. And Kehnaman explains something important. The brain prefers efficiency. That's why most people stay in automatic thinking. But when you override that, you use more mental energy. And that's why being aware feels exhausting. If you've lost someone like this, you probably didn't notice when they changed. They didn't argue. They didn't explain everything. They just stopped engaging. And by the time you realized, they were already gone emotionally. Now, if you are that person, you know the truth. You didn't leave suddenly. You observed, you understood, and then you chose peace over confusion. And this is where everything becomes clear. Awareness is not about knowing everything. It's about seeing patterns and deciding not to ignore them anymore. It's about understanding people without needing to fix them. It's about choosing silence instead of reacting to everything. And yes, it can feel lonely. But here's what most people miss. It's not loneliness, it's clarity. Empaths don't need perfection. They need honesty. And if you can't give them that, they won't stay long enough to explain why. There's another layer to this, because once you become aware, you don't just see people differently. You start seeing time differently. Moments slow down, reactions stretch. And what used to feel urgent starts to feel unnecessary. But here's what most people miss. This is not detachment from life. This is detachment from illusion. And that's where the discomfort grows. Because now you notice how often people rush into conclusions, how quickly they label situations, how easily they react without understanding. And this is the part no one tells you. You used to do the same. Not because you were unaware, but because your mind was efficient. Fast thinking made life easier. But awareness makes it accurate. And accuracy comes with a cost. Now here's where it becomes even more real. You start questioning your own past reactions. Things you said, things you believed, moments where you reacted emotionally when you could have paused. And this is where everything changes again. Because awareness doesn't just show you the present. It rewrites how you see the past. And sometimes that realization is uncomfortable. But this is the part no one tells you. Growth is not always forward. Sometimes it's reflective. You don't just move ahead, you look back differently. Now here's something deeper. You start realizing that most people are not trying to hurt you. They're reacting from their own patterns, their own conditioning, their own automatic thinking. And this changes your perspective completely. Because now, you don't take everything personally. You understand it. And this is where awareness becomes power. Not control over others, but control over yourself. And this is where most people stop. Because this level of awareness requires discipline. It requires patience. It requires the ability to sit with thoughts without immediately acting on them. And this is the part no one tells you. That's not easy. But it becomes natural with repetition. Now, here's what starts happening next. You begin to value silence more than noise. Not because you dislike people, but because your mind needs space. Space to process. Space to think clearly. And this is where everything shifts internally. Because now you're not searching for constant stimulation. You're comfortable with stillness, and stillness is where clarity lives. Now let's go even deeper, because this is where most people misunderstand awareness. They think it makes you distant, cold, disconnected. But the truth is, it makes you selective. You don't give your energy everywhere. You don't react to everything. You don't engage in every conversation. And this creates a perception. People think you've changed. But here's the truth. You've just become intentional. And intention is rare. Now here's the part that changes everything. You start realizing that thoughts are not instructions. They're suggestions. And that one realization creates freedom. Because now you don't follow every thought. You observe it, you question it. You decide whether it deserves your attention. And this is where everything becomes clear. Your mind is not your enemy, but it is not always accurate. It predicts, it fills gaps, it creates stories. And awareness allows you to step outside those stories. Now, here's something most people never realize. You don't need to fix everything you notice. You don't need to correct every pattern. Sometimes awareness is enough. Just seeing clearly is enough to change your behavior. And that's where transformation actually happens. Not through force, but through understanding. Now here's where it becomes quiet. Because the more aware you become, the less you feel the need to explain yourself. You don't argue as much. You don't defend as much. You don't need validation the same way. And this is where everything settles. Because now your peace is internal, not dependent on agreement, not dependent on outcomes, just stable. And that stability comes from clarity. Now here's the final truth most people don't want to accept. Awareness will separate you from certain things, certain conversations, certain people, certain patterns, not because you're better, but because you're no longer aligned. And that's okay, because alignment matters more than comfort. Now, bring this back to yourself. If you feel different lately, if your reactions have slowed, if your thoughts feel deeper, don't ignore it. Don't try to go back, because this isn't something you fix. This is something you grow into. And once you step into that awareness, life doesn't become easier, but it becomes clearer. And clarity is what most people spend their entire lives searching for, without realizing it starts with a single moment. The moment you stop reacting and start observing